Hey folks, my name is Josh. I own Fiera Social Media and Marketing. We work with mobile mechanics that want to expand their client base while adding value to the service that they provide to customers and clients on a daily basis. We also help with ad work for them and make sure that they have programs in place that make it simple and easy for customers to choose them over traditional shops every day. My goal today is to show you how I took my business from chasing customers and hoping that they would get a response to me getting clients constantly and being booked out for 2 to 3 weeks with parts paid up. Everything done for me basically by the time that I got there, and all I had to do was just show up, fix the car, and leave. And I hope to be able to show you how to do that so that way you can grow your business as well. Now, a bit of backstory just so you guys understand where I come from. I started working for Midas quite a few years ago, and when I started off, I was just a lube tech. I had my certificate to be a mechanic and to work, but I hadn't actually worked on vehicles in quite some time. So, when I was professionally working for Midas as a lube tech, I also took on other jobs, doing brakes, doing suspension work, basically everything I already knew how to do. I just wasn't getting paid for it. So I ended up leaving from there, ended up going over to another company that's local, and worked for them for quite a while. And I did have a guarantee when it came down to my payment, but ultimately the output of how much I worked for them, how much they charged, and how much I actually got paid never really sat well with me. So after some time with them, I did end up going to another shop, Brake Masters, and I worked for them for a couple of days, and things just weren't adding up with them. So I ended up one more time leaving and working for a mobile mechanic company. Now, the mobile mechanic company promised $1,000 a week, and I was thinking that's great. $1,000 a week, absolutely. What I didn't take into account, and what kind of fell into place a little bit harder than I hoped it would, was that along with that $1,000 a week, I wasn't getting a gas stipend, I wasn't getting a gas card, and basically anything that I spent out of pocket, which was things like rags or anything I needed to keep myself as a worthy and reasonable mobile mechanic, would have to come out of my pocket. The only thing I was getting paid was that $1,000 a week, which figuratively I was looking at about $300 in gas a week, spending about $60 a day with my 2008 Silverado. Now, that was a great deal for a lot of people. $1,000 a week if you have a small van where you're getting 20, 25 miles per gallon on the gas, fine. I was getting about 15. It wasn't making sense for me anymore. So I worked for them for a while and then ended up deciding to split off my own way and started up my own mobile mechanic business. Now, the great thing about being a mobile mechanic is obviously you have the freedom to work where you want or where the customer's vehicle is, and they don't have to worry about having to wait around in some smelly lounge or in a dirty lounge or really wherever they normally go. They can just stay in their room or stay in their house or stay at work if you want to work on their vehicles while they're working. And that's a great deal for them because it makes it a real value added service. Only problem is most customers don't see it as a value added service. They see it as convenience. Now, let me break down what convenience versus value means for you as a mobile mechanic. When you're being a convenience to someone, they're expecting more out of you than what you initially will talk about. So if you show up and you're just going to do an oil change for them, and then all of a sudden they have another laundry list of things that they need fixed, they're going to expect you to fix that for them on their time and on your dime. It's not the best ideal situation for anyone in that case. So that's why I think that you have to build yourself as an actual value within their life to be able to demand things from them that are really just reasonable accommodations, such as being able to pay for parts ahead of time and being able to let you know what the situation is ahead of time and having the expectation that once the work is done, you're expecting payment at that time, if not before. So I had my shop, I had everything running, and I was starting to take in work when I was hunting through Facebook pages and seeing whose car broke down that day, seeing who needed help, who needed a brake job, who needed a tune-up, who needed small things. I showed up to these cars and these people, and essentially what they were asking me to do was to fix all their problems that they had been putting off through other shops. They had gone to go get oil changes somewhere else, and that they had told them, oh, well, I don't need that work done right now. But I was the one that was going to fix their problem for the least amount of money possible because that's what I was positioning myself as when I was chasing them. Anytime that I was posting up ads on these same groups where I was trying to look for new customers and new clients, I was listing off everything that I did down to the T, including things like noting that I did brake lights or headlights and things like that. Things that are just really reasonable for a mechanic to already know how to do. I was listing them off anyway. What it was doing was actually was creating too much for people to read and too much for people to actually pay attention to, so they just scroll past my ad. I also kept my photos down to adding as many photos as I could of every rotor that I swapped out, every tune-up that I did before and afters, and just overloaded too much information on these people to where I was being ignored completely. Now, I listed all this in my blog, but it's something that's definitely going to stick with me for the rest of my life. Was the moment that I realized that I was not meant to be a convenience to these people as much as I was meant to be the value that was added into their life to be a mobile mechanic for them. I pulled up to an apartment complex here, and when I did, I was supposed to just be diagnosing a vehicle and figuring out why it wouldn't start. Now, keep in mind, I already had my diag fee in place, and I was making sure that I would have money regardless of where I went, so that way it wasn't a total waste for me, even if they didn't want any work done. Now, I knew that I had a personal quota where I wanted to charge people $500 a day total within however many customers I saw for labor, which was a great deal because there was a lot of jobs where you're going to end up going and doing a brake job that normally calls for an hour, hour and a half if they want both side or both front and rear done, and you can do it in 30, 45 minutes if you're fast enough and if you know what you're doing to do it safely and with quality. So I was able to do that, but I pulled up to his house or his apartment complex, and I did the diag for him. Told him, hey, you got a bolt stuck in your head. I need to remove everything off the front to be able to get to it. It's not going to be an easy fix, but I can fix it for you. It's going to cost, 3 hours of shop time plus whatever I'm going to add on for swapping out the parts that I need to swap out while I'm there. So water pump, pulleys, everything like that. He wasn't happy with it. Didn't have the money with it. Didn't have the money for it, but understood that I was a cheaper and more viable option than having him to tow the vehicle somewhere else and get another diag fee and have the work done there for basically the same amount of hours, just having to pay 2 or 3 times as much as I was going to charge him. I finished up with that customer and ended up, having him pay for the parts. Called AutoZone, told him, here, this is what needs to be done. X, Y, and Z needs to be ordered. Everything was done. And I had him schedule that for a couple weeks later because he didn't have the money for the actual repair at that time, so it wasn't going to be on my schedule. As I'm walking away, I had just picked up all my tools, gotten everything and was about to leave. And another customer comes up to me and he goes, hey, can I pay you real quick to just take a look at my car? I thought, absolutely, yeah. Let me check it out for you. See what's going on. He needed to have his brakes checked. I did the brake check for him. Turns out he's only sitting on about 2 millimeters worth of pad. Definitely needed to get it worked on. And after that conversation that I had with him of what needed to be done, he said, "Is there any way I can pay you now and pay for the parts and have them picked up so that way you can just come and do the work for me, and I'll pay you at that time, for the rest of the work?" I was like, "Well, yeah, that it made sense to me in that moment." And then the best thing was that he actually told me that the work that I was doing for him was not just money that I was saving him, but it was time and some things that you just can't trade off when you're paying somebody to do is the amount of time that it's going to take to have to be somewhere else. He was a single dad, so he was staying at the apartment with his kids, and having to have them anywhere else kind of bit into quality time for what he was doing with them and what he wanted to be able to do instead of having to be at a shop, for X amount of time to have these things fixed. He made sure that he was asking me, my expertise and not telling me everything that he needed done because he needed it done during this time period and everything like that. It was at that moment that I kind of started changing my mindset of how I was going to run my business and what I was going to expect out of customers. The reality was that I could now position myself in a place where a customer would have to pay for parts up front if they wanted a certain fix done, or if they just wanted a diag and wanted to know what was wrong with their car, they would have to pay me either way to come out and figure out what was going on. And keep in mind, my shop fees for a diag weren't astronomical like a lot of other shops where they charge $135, $200. My shop diag charge was about 60 to 80 bucks depending on where I was going. And I was still driving myself out to a long distance. Now I definitely recommend keeping yourself within a 20, 25-mile radius of yourself, unless you're actually going to go for a job that is going to pay you a lot more and is going to keep you within a certain budgetary constraint. Now, what I mean by that is if you're going to go out and you're just going to do a brake job for somebody and charge them, whatever your shop fees are, which I'm going to go over how to price yourself better. If you're going to do that, but you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're staying within a certain limit of your house or the next job that you're going to have to do. Because if you're putting yourself out, 30, 40 miles out for just a quick brake job and these people only want that, you're going to underprice yourself and you're not going to feel the value coming back on that end. So after I went through and booked everything, and he actually paid me up front to make sure I could get the parts and pick them up and be able to do the work the time that we had scheduled, I went home that day and started fixing everything that I did. So my ads got substantially shorter. I'm talking about instead of listing everything that I did, I started focusing on the categories or the issues that were local to the area. So here in Arizona, you've got AC fixes that you need to do because everybody needs their air conditioning basically year round, radiator fixes and replacements because radiators bust out here in the heat constantly, hose fixes, and other things like brakes. And we do a lot of city driving out here, so those brakes wear out usually in a year and a half, sometimes less. Now, I focused on these things because I knew that it was going to drive the customers that I wanted and that I could price out at better rates. Radiators, depending on the vehicle, I mean, if I'm working on a Silverado, I know it's going to take me about 45 minutes to swap that thing out, and I know my time on it. I know that I can charge anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours for it, which it's shop rates. It's a standardized set that we have, and we have to start abiding by those instead of charging for our time. We have to charge for how much value we're going to add into their life. Yes, I'm going to charge you for the 2 hours because that's what it's calling for, but it's only going to take me 45 minutes, and it's going to add that extra hour and 15 minutes. That value added is what they're going to be paying for, and what they're going to start realizing that they're paying for you as a mobile mechanic to come into their lives, because they're not having to drop the vehicle off for a day and hope that it gets done by the end of the day. You're coming out there because you know what you're doing and you know how to fix the vehicle in the least amount of time with really no speed bumps unless you run into another issue, which by that point you should have already diagged the car anyway and done what you had to do to figure out if that was going to be the only fix. Now, once you're finally positioning yourself in that at least on the ads and whatever you're posting on Google or Facebook of what you do, you want to make sure that your images that you're showing are going to be for your before and after for just a few fixes. So if you want to show a brand new rotor with new pads on a vehicle, absolutely do it. Don't list everything that you do, and don't put all the photos that you took in a day up. It's going to overload people and they're not going to respond. And the ones that do, you're going to typically get a lower quality of customer. Now, when I say lower quality of customer, I don't mean people that you don't want to work for. I just mean that they're going to be expecting everything from you on the first try. And realistically, as a mobile mechanic, your time really is more valuable than most people see it, because they see it as you're there for their convenience. Like I said, you have to put yourself as a valued service instead of as a convenient service. That's why I'd like to show you, and I'm going to show you right now, how to position yourself instead of being a service industry. You're going to be a value industry for them. Now, I've worked in a lot of different service industries, basically every industry that I can think of. Things like marketing, things like mobile mechanic, things sales, customer service. I've done just about everything when it comes down to those businesses. Why I do deem myself a jack of all trades. But what I've also found in these industries and why I can speak so openly about them is that customers really do expect everything from us because they have been trained in the customer's always right mindset. And that's fine when it comes down to things like retail. And, there's quite a few instances where they're wrong and we just kind of roll with them anyway. But having to work for yourself and start up your own business as a mobile mechanic and doing these things by yourself really allows you to put yourself in the position of expert, but you have to maintain yourself there because it's no longer your shop manager or um, your ticket writer that's going to be doing these things for you. You're going to have to put yourself in the position of, okay, well, I'm letting you know what's wrong with the vehicle. This is what I'm expecting when it comes down to fixing it. And I need you to comply with these things so that way I can do my job better for you. You have to make sure that you're doing that for customers and setting the expectation in place for when you're showing up to the vehicle and you're going to get ready to work on it. What I mean by that is when you're starting up your Facebook posts and you've done your Facebook page, you've created enough content on there and enough information so that way they know that you're not just a shade tree mechanic. We all know them. We've probably fixed problems that they've had that they've created for us before. But essentially, what you want to do is you want to take yourself from that position to being the expert in your field, in their locations. So when you're putting up a Facebook ad, you're going to want to, and I'm going to show you guys a blueprint. I leave it here in the description as well. You're going to want to create that and let them know, hey, I work on these vehicles, and then also this is what I'm expecting when I do. So message me for rates. I do have a diag fee for coming out to the vehicle, and also this is how much I have experience in, and also the state or the area that you're going to be working in. So, like say out here in Arizona, if you were going to start up a mobile mechanic business and you only service the Phoenix area, you just want to make sure that you're setting that expectation so that way you're not having to tell people no from Tempe or Mesa. It's going to happen either way, but it's not going to happen as much if you say local Phoenix mobile mechanic, and then list the rest of your information of I do this, I do this, I do this. Usually focus on about 3 or 4 main highlights. So local Phoenix mechanic, AC repair, radiator repair, battery replacement, and then whatever you and brake jobs. Usually those are going to be your 4 main bankrollers when it comes down to that. Because I mean a battery swap, as long as it's not like on a Intrepid where the batteries in the tire well and the wheel well, it's not going to really cost you that much time. So you want to make sure that you list things and you're putting your expectations there for the customers and for the clients, so that way they're not having to ask a million questions that are going to really lead you down a path of they're already expecting everything from you. You're letting them know ahead of time. Also, I take cash, I take Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, whatever payment methods you take, make sure that you list or you sign up with a Square or a Clover account. Now, I'm not being sponsored by them in any way, shape, or form. But when you're setting up yourself as a business and a legitimate business, you want to make sure that you do have a Square setup or a Clover setup, so that way you can get paid even if they don't have the amount of cash on them or if they want to run to the bank. But honestly, I've had so many freak out moments when I finished the vehicle. They've told me that they're going to pay me, and this is when I first started. They tell me they're going to pay me, and then all of a sudden it's, hey, I need to run out to the bank to go get the money. My question was always like, you knew that I was coming to fix the car. I told you how much I was going to charge you. Why didn't you have the money with you? And I was always worried in the back of my mind. Luckily, it never happened, that they were just going to drive off and I wasn't going to see them again. But having that extra payment method makes it so that way you can take payments in any form. Like I said, personally, I took Zelle, Cash App, cash, obviously. I did take checks. I took Square. I had a setup so that way I could be basically paid with just about anything outside of Bitcoin. And I was, happy with being able to do that because I was able to provide them the service. I was able to get paid, and everything went smoothly after I started putting these things in place. And also, I got a sticker that I was able to stick on the side of the truck that said that I took, those kind of payments, which again is great, and it does position you more as the expert and the professional business instead of just, again, shade tree mechanic. They're fine, and there's some things that I don't mind them doing, but quite honestly, if you want to make sure that you are seen in a different light, you have to put yourself in a different light than them. So moving on from that, I also did do a lot of handoff work when it came up to things like engine swaps, heavier jobs that I couldn't or wouldn't do. Um, and when I say couldn't, I mean because there were just some jobs that it takes 2 mechanics to do, and I wasn't gonna cart around a cherry picker with me to make sure that I could rip out an engine anytime I went to do other brake jobs or other jobs that I didn't really need the tools for. Now I did have my toolbox in the back of my truck secured and made sure that nothing could be stolen out of it. I had my scanner. And definitely, one thing I do want to touch on is that if you're going to be getting tools, you don't have to go for Snap-on or Matco or anything like that. I'm going to tell you right now, 100%, it is okay to go with an Autel scanner. They are wonderful machines. They are great. You can program keys with them. You can bleed brakes. Everything for a fraction of the cost of instead of having to pay for a $25,000 scanner, you can get one for roughly around $1,000 that does everything and even more than what I expected of it. And if you guys want any reviews on that, let me know down at the bottom in the comments. I'll kind of go through and see which ones have worked for me. Like I said, Autel is a great company. They do a great job with their software and everything. Usually get free updates for a year or two, which again doesn't cost you a dime. And if you want to keep on updating it, I mean, you can always do that as well. And that's why I'm trying to help create that value and the benefit to your business, so that way you can do everything that a major shop would, a fraction of the cost for you, and still be able to charge good amounts of money to clients to be able to do the same job and have the peace of being at home or at their work. Now, when it came down to doing all of this advertising work and everything, I also had my Google Pages set up for my business. Now that was really a surprise later on, because when I finally logged back into it after I created it and put all the information on there, put my photos, put the description of what I did, and everything that I took, I was getting calls, but I figured that people were looking at my Facebook ad, seeing my phone number, and calling me that way. It turns out that I was actually getting quite a few customers and clients that were reaching out to me through my Google ad or my Google page, because I wasn't advertising with Google. They were contacting me that way, and turns out that I had a bunch of reviews on there with my business, and they were looking at it and saying, well, this guy's ranked, high up in the Googles without having to pay for an ad spot. He must be a reputable business. I didn't realize that I had inadvertently actually put myself in the number one position of Google by having the reviews in place, by putting in the keywords that Google would be looking for to rank me as a quality mobile mechanic out here in Arizona. So I put myself in that position unknowingly, and then finally later on, when I broke everything down of what I did and started creating this walkthrough, this blueprint, that I knew now what I had done back then that put me in that position, and that's why I can help so many clients and customers now to be able to put themselves in that same position to where they're a local business that's trusted and is an authority as deemed by Google. And keep in mind the process that I've built here and I've put together that you can put in place for yourself is something that will make sure that you're setting yourself the groundwork to have continual customers, continual clients, and they're going to be responding to you expecting you to tell them what to do, not them telling you what you have to do for them. This allowed me to have a normal days in between $500 and $600, and just on average of profit. And I don't mean that's plus parts or plus whatever I had to pay. I mean that's gas money paid for, parts that I had to pay for out of pocket, like gaskets or whatever that was just needed as a mobile mechanic. When you go do AC jobs, you typically charge them, X amount of money, and then you're going to charge them for the gaskets. So you have to have them on hand. So you already have to have those anyway, so you're not running back and forth. Simple, quick, easy jobs and simple, quick payout for being able to do what I had thought was just reasonable and put in place. But have been seeing quite an uprise of mobile mechanics that aren't really doing things like that, and I don't know if it's because they don't know how to do it or they're just not aware that we shouldn't be seen as a convenience to all customers and clients. So if you guys have any questions, make sure that you do put them down bottom. Share this with anybody else that you think might need it. Uh, Honestly, we have enough manpower as mechanics to be able to have one or two of these shops in place and start cutting down on customers having to, ask for help from shops that aren't willing to help them or just want to overcharge them to help them. You do want to be able to put your mindset in that you want to help the client, you want to help the customer. You're going to stop hunting down customers from Facebook and seeing whose car broke down. You're going to be able to turn yourself into a business that people reach out to because they know that you're the number one in your area and that's who they want to talk to. You want to also drive that you do want reviews. Hey, if you feel that I did a good job today, do me a favor and go on my Facebook page where you found me, leave me a review real quick, recommendation, whatever. You're gonna tell them that. You're not gonna ask for it. You're gonna let them know that that's what you want them to do, because by this point they should already be listening to you and doing so. So that way they're recommending you. Hey, do me a favor. If you think I did a great job, which by that point you've already gotten the awesome. You did a great job. You fixed my car. Thank you. Here's your money. Hey, do me a quick favor. Go ahead and go on my Facebook page where you found me. Leave me a review, and then let your friends and family know, so that way they know that I'm available to help them out, and I'm a reasonable service. And also, when you're doing that, make sure that you leave them a card. If you don't know how to use Vistaprint or anything like that, reach out to me. I can help you out. I can help you design a card too. I do offer those services. But what I did to start off, and this is something that I keep on boasting about because it's one of my favorite things to do when you're starting up a new business, and I've done a few. Um, you want to go through 444.com. What they allow you to do is once you sign up with an account, if you share their link, and you leave reviews for them, which believe me, you're going to be happy. They allow you to get 200 business cards for free, completely free. You don't have to pay for shipping. You don't have to pay for designing it. It is a self-designing tool. You can pay them to design you one, but realistically, it's pretty simple. If you have a business name, if you've got you got a business name, you got a phone number, contact information, whatever you want to put on there, throw it on there. Again, if you guys aren't tech savvy enough to do things like that, reach out to me, let me know, I can help out. But realistically, it's really simple setup. It's kind of quick, it's kind of drag and drop with their system, and you can get free business cards. And that allows you to be able to give one to a customer. Hey, here you go. Um, Here you go in case you have any friends or family that want to get a car worked on. Basically you're just giving them that handoff of there's your business card. Um, it cements it in more that you are a legitimate business, even more than what you've already done. What the professional post that you've put, to the method of payment that you take, and then the business card, it cements it, makes sure that they see that you are a legitimate business, that you're not just Joe down the road. And honestly, when you're putting all that together, it may not seem like much, and it may seem like they're dismissive about it, but I guarantee you that in the back of their mind, they're looking at it like, did that really happen? Was that an actual exchange that I had? I don't feel like I've gotten taken advantage of. And even if they feel like they paid more than what they could have, absolutely. But you want to make sure that you do a job right, and you got to let them know that you want to make sure that you do a job that's going to allow them to continue using their vehicle and not have an issue down the road that's unknown or that could have been fixed at that time. So you're going to let them know everything that needs to be done, just like a normal shop would, just like you would at your normal shop. You let them know, hey, I was fixing your control arms. I did notice that your shocks or your struts are leaking a little bit, and your struts are getting kind of weak, and they do need to be replaced. So that's how much I would. This is how much I would charge for that. I don't have time that it makes sure that unless you actually don't have anything going on for the next appointment slot, and typically what I would recommend is 4 to 5 appointments booked out about 2 hours within 2 hours. So if you're doing a brake job and you've got 2 or 3 brake jobs lined up for that day, set one up at say 8:30, set one up at 10:30, and then set one up at 12:30. Because essentially what you're doing is you're giving yourself time to not only do those. Granted, you may be done in 30 minutes or less to do that brake job. I had a 3-ton jack where I could just jack the car up real quick. I had an electric hammer impact. Sorry, I had an electric impact wrench that I just was able to get those tires off real quick. I was able to get all the bolts off real quick, swap out the pads and rotors, slap everything back together, bleed the system out if I needed to. If I had to encountered any issues with the brake caliper or the calipers locking up or anything like that, I was able to do it and still be under 30-45 minutes, which gave me an hour and a half or an hour 15 minutes. Now, when I was in there working on the vehicle, I was noting other things that were going on. What I did was that I sent them a message while I was working on the vehicle, because most of the time they wouldn't stick outside with me. It's Arizona, it's hot. So they would be inside, and I'd tell them, hey, I was working on your car, notice this. Let's say that their caliper locked up. This is why you were having issues before. Your caliper's locked up. This is how much it would be from AutoZone, because I already had the app on my phone, so I knew how much the commercial price was for me, and I made sure that I marked it up to MSRP. Here, this is how much it's going to cost to get that brake caliper swapped up. They have one available. Do you want me to swap that out for you? Because otherwise you're going to have issues. You're not going to be able to drive this car. There's no guarantee that I'll be able to push this caliper down. And it put me in a position where I had that extra time and that extra cushion to be able to offer these extra services that I wanted to. Because I could have just easily said, hey, your caliper's locked up. I'll be able to finish this brake job, at X time, say tomorrow. Do you need this vehicle today? And they said yes. Then okay, fine. It's going to cost me this much. It's going to cost this much to get the caliper, and things like that. I would obviously charge them a little bit more, about half an hour worth of work, to be able to swap that out, because it's going to take me the time to drive there, to come back, to unload that caliper, and to hook it back up and now bleed the system. But make sure that you book out about 2 hours. It helps you keep your time periods a little bit better when it comes down to servicing the vehicles, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're doing shoot, I don't know, do it here. We have to do a tune-up, and you have to take off the entire valve cover to do it, and then you're putting yourself at 2 hours or an hour, and you're expecting it to be done then, and then you start running into issues. Giving you the 2 hour window, make sure that you're able to help as many clients as possible. And if you honestly, as a mechanic, if you don't put your time period like that, then you're going to definitely run into a bunch of problems where you're going to be overtaxed on time. And I definitely don't recommend that, because then you're going to be stressed out. You're not going to feel the value that you're delivering to customers and clients. Um, and honestly, if there's jobs that you're just not comfortable with, just tell them no. Just tell them that you don't do that. Refer them to a shop that you trust, that you would trust with your own vehicle, is the way that I put it. Because I wouldn't do a motor handoff to anybody else unless I knew that I trusted them with my own vehicle, which is what I did. I handed off those jobs, anything that had to do with alignments, um, where they actually needed an alignment. I was pretty good at being able to swap out most of the parts and get it back down to the dead center. But anything that you don't want to have to do for these for clients, that is bigger jobs, going to take up more time, going to take up your whole day. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Don't put yourself in that position where you're trying to pull out an engine, and you're thinking it's only going to take you a day and a half or whatever, and now you're stuck on 3 days and you're having to put off other clients. It's just easier for them to have it in a shop where they can just rip it out with the cherry picker, or lift up the car and get it out from under. Whatever you have to do, just make sure that you're putting value in your own time, because most of the time it's not going to be as good of a job. You're going to feel rushed. You're going to rush the work, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. You don't want that. The client doesn't want that. But yes, be selective in the work that you accept, because that allows you to put yourself more as a expert in those things. So say, like I said, that you did AC work, brakes, transmission flushes, things like that. Whatever you know is going to be a high value item in most shops, that they're charging them, $200-300 for a transmission flush, where you know that you can do it in X amount of time, and you can do the whole pan drop and everything. Make sure that you're valuing the work that you're doing and being able to do it in the time that you're giving them, so that way you're not making yourself out to be a bigger letdown than the shop would have been. So do things that you can do best, so that way you can provide the best service in those things. You don't need to worry about being the all-around mechanic. Believe me, that's a big misconception that we have, that you have to know everything about everything or you're not going to succeed. That's not true. That's not the reality at all. If you specialize in certain things, make sure that you let them know that you're specialized in that. Um, if you're ASE certified in this, make sure that you're listing that. If you have anything else that you specialize in, make sure that they know, because that way you are seen even more as an expert of, okay, well, I know that you don't normally work, like, say, I know that you normally don't work in diesels, but I have this issue. Okay, well, I don't. If you have any knowledge of it, feed it to them. Hey, I really don't know, or just tell them, hey, I do know about that. I've worked on it before. Go with what you makes you most comfortable when it comes down to working on these vehicles. Because if not, like I said, you're not going to see the value in your own work, and they're not going to see the value in your own work. So stop letting them dictate what you do, what you don't know, and what they're expecting of you, because that's really going to just make sure that they control the entire relationship at that point. Now, as far as shop rates go, this is something that I definitely wanted to touch on before I finish this video. Is if you guys are charging 50, $40 per hour that you work on, you're not doing yourself a service when it comes down to that. I know that it seems like it attracts more customers and that they're going to want to, work with you more because you're charging less. It just means in their mind that you're not as valuable as the guy next door. The reason I'm saying that is because I was able to charge upwards of $80 an hour per work hour, and that just was like if I was doing a brake job and I know I could charge them for the 2 hours. I was charging them $80, which meant $160 total for the brake job, plus whatever they had to pay for parts, which was already paid for up front, and I was going to be in and out of there in 30-45 minutes, and I was done. So $160 an hour is what it meant to me. We have to figure out is what it means to you. Are you going to be charging the $40 an hour because that's what you think your work is worth? I don't think so. I know you don't think so. So make sure that you're pricing yourself accurately for your area. Call around a couple shops, find out what their hourly rate is. Because honestly, if you call 4 or 5 shops and they're all running around 135 to $150 an hour, you know that you're going to be able to take some price off of that. And some people, some people I've even done where I charge them the same amount that they would get in a shop, but guess what? They're able to sit at home, they're able to relax and everything. And plus, a lot of these other mobile mechanic services that I've seen and I've heard advertised, they're charging the same amount of shop rates, and they're able to do so because they've set the standard. So you have to set your own standard when it comes down to that. So instead of charging the 40, 50, $60 per hour, charge them the full shop rate, or charge them close to it, just slightly under. Position yourself in a good value position, but you're still the expert anyway. You're not like I said, shade tree mechanic. You're not charging them, best friend can swap out my engine for me for $500. No, no, no. We're going to go and we're going to set ourselves in a position where we can actually help these clients and these customers and charge them what we're worth, because we have positioned ourselves in that place where they're not going to be questioning, hey, why is it so much? Or why is this? You're letting them know ahead of time, hey, I know you messaged me about this. In the initial message, you told me that you've been hearing your car squeak, or you've been hearing this happen. This is okay, fine. That could possibly, make sure that you let them know, that could possibly be your brakes. If it's brakes, it's going to be this much plus your parts, which are this. Make sure you look it all up. Make sure you've got everything connected to where you can just easily flow. I had my AutoZone app. I had my O'Reilly webpage up. I had Parts Authority. I had everybody ready to go. So that way, if I did get a quote, or if I got a request for a quote, I could be like, okay, well, based on what you told me, it could be this. If it's not, then we'll talk about that price at that time. But right now, based on what you're telling me and based on my expertise, this is what I believe it is. And I'll confirm tomorrow when I do the diag, which again is X amount of money. So that's about everything that I can put together to make sure that you guys drive yourself to a position where you can charge what you feel is your worth. Position your business as not being a service to customers as much as being a value to them, because that is going to change their entire mindset, how they react to you, how they interact with you, and how you're able to get things done for them. Once you do that, then I promise you that customers are going to be coming to you, asking you for your expertise, for your knowledge, for your work, and value every penny that they pay you. Now, if you guys have any questions, if you guys want to put some of these systems into place and don't quite know how, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to link my website. I'm going to link the blog that I posted up that had this as a read through. I'm also going to list the actual format that I use for my Facebook ads, so that way you guys can see, copy it, use it for your own stuff. Just let me know if you guys like the content. Leave me a comment if you guys would. Any questions that you might have, reach out to me. I hope you guys have a great day, and hope this helps you out in some way.